All right, here we go. YogaPod podcast, maybe a bonus episode, maybe a special episode, maybe episode 643.
All of the episodes are special.
Yes, they are indeed special. So I think today, my understanding is we're going to talk about the 200-hour hot training.
It's a true story.
Yeah. I've got Gretchen. Would you pronounce your last name for me?
Kontz.
Okay, Kontz.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kyle
Larson.
That was good. Right on cue. So, and you two are going to be the facilitators?
We are the co-leads.
The
Yes.
co-leads. All right. Interesting. Okay, co-leads. And that's going to be happening in February 14th.
Yes.
Is that the day that it starts?
No, it's the 5th.
5th.
Oh, dear God.
Whatever the Wednesday is of the first week of
Oh,
February.
sweet Jesus.
And then
We don't even know. Uh-huh.
before spring break.
Mm-hmm.
That was the idea.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
6 weeks.
6 weeks. Yeah, 6 weeks of hot training. So I think that let's talk about why it's, you know what? Let's start with a little bit of your yoga history, each of you. I think that'd be fun. Don't you think that'd be fun? Who started? Wait a minute. Who started first? Who's been practicing longer?
You did.
2004-ish.
She doesn't know off the top of her head.
It's been so long for Gretchen.
No,
2004.
But no, it's you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I did not enjoy yoga at first. I'm not going to put that up there. It's really
You
good.
can.
over here?
Yeah, go for it,
put over
dude.
there. We'll hide it.
Whatever.
Yeah. So I won a contest to take
Mhm.
or to do a 60-day challenge at the Bikram Yoga in Old Town.
Mm-hmm.
If I did all 60 days, then I would get a year for free.
Okay.
So I did all 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
I got the free year, but I didn't want to take it because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't like yoga. So then I went to Austin for a couple days. And
You're
I
like smoking cigarettes and partying all the time, and
yes.
yeah, huh? Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, as I'm
You're in your
20s.
20s. Yeah,
so,
makes sense.
of
Yeah.
course. So then I went to Austin and for a couple days, and it was awful how bad my body felt. So I came back and took up my free year.
You
Then
you went to
after
where?
Austin?
Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just for a work thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
And you-
that wasn't cool.
Okay, and so you were in Austin. You didn't do any yoga.
For a couple days. Yeah, my 60 days was up. I
Mhm.
even did it. I did it in like 55 days because I had to go to this thing in Austin.
Okay.
So
But you don't like losing.
no.
You're
Well,
like,
no,
oh, I'm going to win.
It's not even that. I'm not a driven person. I'm very lazy.
Yeah,
Come
right.
on.
That's funny.
I felt like I had never won anything.
Oh,
And this was not only like a win, but a challenge. Like you win this, but
they got you.
you could win more.
Mm-hmm.
If you
They
just
got
come
you.
every day.
They
And
got
I was
you.
like, all right, bunks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna win this damn year.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Good job.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So I did, and then I ended up taking him up on it. After a while, I got invited into the advanced series, which is like a thing that they do in the Bikram studios where they invite you to take the
Mm-hmm.
84 class.
Sure.
And then I met some more senior teachers, and I ended up taking
Mhm.
a class in Los Angeles and talking to teachers there. And the consensus from those people was, you should go take teacher training. So I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back, and I've just been teaching since.
Yeah. So you took the teacher training. What were the orgies like at your teacher training?
Oh, they were intense, man. From what I've read about in Esquire, at least. My experience is so bland compared to the documentaries and the, and the things that you can read.
Yeah.
Nothing happened at my training.
Okay.
As far as my experience goes, I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of things happened with other people.
Sure. But as far as your personal
I
experience,
mean,
yeah.
we were busy. Like we were in class or posture clinic or lecture or whatever from like 8 in the morning until like 4 in the morning. I don't know how the hell people found time to do anything.
Yeah.
All I wanted to do was sleep.
Yeah. For those 4 hours.
All I wanted to do was sleep that whole time.
So fun. Awesome.
Yeah. So that was
Okay,
9
cool.
weeks, and I came back and I've been teaching since.
Been teaching ever since. Ooh, I love
I
it.
had to give
you
up
ever take
the
any
smoking
breaks?
and stuff.
Teaching?
from
Had to
teaching.
give up the smoking and
Yeah.
stuff.
So when the first allegations against Bikram came out,
Ooh.
Not only did I give up teaching, I gave up yoga.
Oh.
I was so upset.
Oh, this is so juicy.
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, I was
I love
done.
it. Okay.
I was done. I
You were
figured
like,
that the
bastard,
entire thing
bastard
was
man.
a lie.
Yeah.
And
You
the
thought it
whole
was a
thing
lie.
Yeah, everything was a lie. The whole system.
Oh, the whole thing was a lie. Okay, not that people were lying, but that he was a liar.
Yeah, like, no, like everything. Yeah, the whole system was flawed. So that was, it was
yeah.
really devastating to me. Probably 6 months or so.
And then what happened? How'd you feel?
Lisa started going to a lawn.
Uh-huh.
I felt like crap.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I just,
you justified it.
I started vaping at that point, like vaping nicotine.
Yeah.
So I went back to smoking,
so
but not
great.
smoking. I went back to,
That's so great.
it's better for me.
Oh,
And
totally.
that became like my thing.
Uh-huh.
So wait, I want to go back to this.
This is so good. So he's smoking cigarettes.
You quit for years then while you were teaching?
Yeah.
And
For
then
how-
you went after, so everything went to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah,
after
well,
all
I
that
mean,
came out.
so I had been smoking on and off kind of even while I
Okay.
was teaching. I didn't quit for probably until 5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I remember.
Wow.
I remember
Yeah.
you telling me that you were vaping and that kind of weaned you,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
That's interesting. It's so juicy. Mm.
It's crazy, right? It's
Okay.
actually crazy how many yoga teachers smoke.
Mm.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Or did, at least that I have known.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
How about you, Gretch?
My story is not near as exciting as yours. Kyle.
I
story's
feel
much
like
more exciting.
I feel like it might be.
Well, not really.
I mean, it's not a big
no.
room story, so
It's not. It's not. Right. So I worked out at the Pulse, which is Raintree,
yeah.
and I started to take yoga classes there, and they were
Mhm.
heated. And I liked them, but they weren't even a hot class.
Yeah.
And the girl was like, there's a studio putting on a teacher training, and I wanted something different because I just finished, I've talked about this before, P90X.
Mm-hmm.
Really liked the yoga, even though Tony Horton's a total cheese ball.
Yeah.
I really liked the yoga part of it, and I had never done it before. I kind of dipped my toes into meditation, things like that.
Sure.
And I thought, well, I'll try it. So I drove to Elan and met Darren, who was the previous owner. And I said, I'm a beginner. And he said, it's great because you don't have any bad habits formed yet. And so I went home and kind of discussed it and signed up for it and did the training it was a vinyasa training. And so I did that. I thought I just want to learn more. I don't wanna teach.
Yeah, of
I
course.
really went in there with no expectations to teach. And I by the end of it, I was like, I want to teach. And
Yeah.
so
And what were you teaching at that point?
nothing. So this is really interesting. So the new so it was switched over owners,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, we're going to do a hot training. So if you want to do the hot training, it was a Saturday. It was one day, maybe 2.5 hours. We went over the postures.
Mm-hmm.
We went over how to say them, and we went over the timing and said,
Okay.
if you want to teach, you're going to do a live audit. So I went home. I probably called my friends because I guess phones were probably there. Called all my friends. I had about 5 people. I taught them one class. I called the owner and I said, I'm going to teach. I want to teach. So I did the training on Saturday. I taught my first class on Tuesday, and I was offered the job, I think, the following week and was teaching.
Wow.
Started to teach.
Good for you.
So I started to take Brad's classes because you weren't around yet. You weren't there. I started to take Brad's classes.
He was still vaping.
Yeah.
Totally.
I started to take Brad's classes religiously. I was there, like,
Mhm.
he taught the 6 a.m.
I mean, that's the
Monday.
only way you can take Brad's class, right? Is religiously.
True,
Yeah.
true. And if he
Mhm.
knows that
At
you're
6 a.m.
yeah, right. And if he knows that you're interested, he takes you under your wing.
He hones in.
and he teaches you what you need to
Focuses
know.
in,
And
yeah.
so I took his classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 a.m. Never missed a beat and
Mhm.
learned to teach by just practicing, really.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of expanded from there. So I really didn't officially do any type of hot training, but I feel like I've learned under such like amazing teachers, Kyle, Brad,
Mhm.
Danielle,
Yeah.
so and Lisa, and everyone still is offering me advice, and like when I'm teaching the 90 minutes, because
Sure.
that's new to me, and I just take what everybody says and
Sure.
kind of keep pushing.
Well, it's a neat compliment, right? Like the two of you are kind of a neat compliment because you are such like that. That is your base. Hot is your base, and you kind of came to it later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a neat compliment. And
Yeah.
what's
And
your
it's
what?
the same with vinyasa. I came to vinyasa later. And then
Yeah.
And my
Yeah.
base, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that's important that we talk about that in the 200 hour. And so you're the program director at YogaPod, is that?
I am the program
That's
director.
the correct
Yes.
title
Yes.
for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. I'm
feel
glad I got that
silly.
right. Yeah.
that's fancy.
It is fancy.
So let's talk about some of the questions that people have had. So why would somebody want to take a 200-hour hot training?
Well, I mean, there's a lot. If you're inclined to be a teacher
Mm-hmm.
and you are passionate about the hot series,
Mm-hmm.
would be the first reason.
'Kay.
Think about it, because this is going to dive deep into the lineage that it comes from, and
Sure.
and then the sequence itself, of course. And,
'Kay.
yeah, that's I think, and then I think if you're not a hot practitioner and you are interested in being a yoga teacher, then it's the same reason that you would take any teacher training, and then you would take ours because our teachers get hired seriously at every yoga studio in town.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also think that this hot training, first of all, it's the first one in northern Colorado.
Yeah, of its
The
kind.
first
Yeah.
200
First
hour
200-hour hot
training.
training. Yeah.
I think it's a really great way to dip your toes into teaching.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're not having to worry about sequencing classes, which
Yep.
can be a big stressor for
Agreed.
a lot of teachers. I think oftentimes, you're not getting much sequencing in a 200-hour. We teach sequencing, and it's something that I'm like really passionate about, because when I left my 200-hour, I didn't feel confident
Mm-hmm.
in it, and so I think that's important that we offer that. So you don't have to worry about sequencing. You have an opportunity to hone in on holding space for
Mhm.
students, and then being able to fine tune the poses, because they're the same poses, same sequence from time, like every time you take a class.
Yeah.
And so those are really great skills to work on as a beginner teacher, hands
Yeah.
down.
And because we're not working on sequencing and teaching all of the sequencing, we have more time for longer workshops.
Yeah,
Mhm.
to delve into other things.
Mhm.
So Kristen and Brad's hands-on adjustment workshop, instead of being 2 hours, is over 2 days, and it's like 6 hours. It's just
That's
so
so
much
great.
more
Mhm.
in depth, and we get to break down the postures so much more thoroughly,
Yeah.
so that people have an understanding kind of from the ground up exactly what it should look and do.
Well, and I think that the thing that's interesting, if you look at how many hot classes do you think you'd taken by the time you went to teacher training?
Oh shit!
A lot.
Yeah, 1,000.
A lot. Yeah, like a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so, because I'm going to actually take the 200-hour, even though I already took the 60-hour and I'm teaching hot currently,
Mhm.
like have a class on the schedule because I want to learn more.
Yes.
Like, it's my thing, right? But I also recognize that if I do that 200-hour training, then I can move on and do a vinyasa training afterwards,
Correct.
right? And then
Yep.
be able to teach vinyasa and maybe get a little more creative
Well, and you
with other classes, right?
wouldn't even need to do a full vinyasa training. It's an immersion that will be offered.
Yeah.
That just will teach.
So can you
sequencing and the
Yeah,
postures.
so can you guys talk about that? Like what that would look like for somebody who's like, okay, well I want to like hot's interesting to me and I like the idea of getting a 200-hour training, but will I be able to teach vinyasa, or how would I be able to get to that point?
Sure. So following the 200-hour hot teacher training,
Mhm.
it ends in March. The date isn't nailed down yet, but
Mhm.
I'm pushing. Like I'm gonna encourage for an April vinyasa immersion.
'Kay.
And during that immersion, we're gonna go over and revisit anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna visit the posture breakdown that you'll see typically not in a hot class, but in vinyasa classes, and then focus in on sequencing, which is, to
It's
me,
the key.
that is,
Mm-hmm.
and you're
It's
setup-
terrifying to me. Yeah.
Oh, but it's so much fun.
It's
so
terrifying.
much fun once you get a good feel for anatomy.
Yeah.
The sequencing just kind of falls naturally
Starts
into
to make
place.
sense, yeah.
It does. It really
Mhm.
does. I wish I had something like that when I went through my
Mhm.
trainings. If I could have taken an immersion where I could have learned, sequencing, more anatomy, more alignment.
Sure.
And then you already have after the 200 hour, you already should feel pretty confident teaching.
Yeah.
And so you take that right out. And so this is for the immersion, not only for the people coming out of a 200 hour hot training, but for really anybody that wants to go deeper.
Up there, practice.
I went to a 300 hour to learn how to sequence, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're offering that right in is just another little component.
That's
and
great.
that's also continuing education credit through Yoga Alliance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's,
And it's really
so all of the
intentional.
programs are
Yeah.
really
Really, it seems very intentional and very very well thought out, like the way that you guys have done this. So let's talk a little bit about so past teachers from the teacher trainings, they've gone on to teach where? Like everywhere, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
gyms,
So
other studios.
we have
Yeah.
teachers at Studio 68, which I believe is it Timnith?
Timnith,
Timnith.
Yeah.
Which has been incredible. They have just welcomed our teachers with open arms.
Sure.
Yes.
And we just are really developing a wonderful relationship with them.
Yeah.
There's a new studio called ACT.
Mhm.
Our prior program director, Julia Tompkins, went over there to be the director, and we have several teachers that have spread their wings to go there, which we're really excited about.
Including some teacher trainers.
So, some of the new teacher trainers. Yep, we have Andrea Mazer, who's going over there. Madison Tomlinson, who just finished up her teacher training. I don't want to. Katie Brown, she did teacher training when we first opened, which is really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
That
Jen Smith did
she
hot.
She
did hot with us.
The hot immersion. Okay,
Yep.
awesome. So it's really amazing that we're able to provide teachers for Fort Collins.
Yeah, and Rick Moore just got a job at Genesis.
Rick, he did.
Awesome.
Super
Rick's
excited.
awesome.
I know, he's wonderful. I mean, and so they're such wonderful assets to all of these yoga studios in town that we're really excited to be able to be a part of that.
Yeah. And I think it must really speak to the training that you're giving people.
I hope so.
That you're getting, that you're getting people hired. That's, ultimately for people who want to teach, how many yoga teachers are there in Northern Colorado? There's so many. So for people to actually be able to go and get a job somewhere out of training, that's pretty incredible. It speaks a lot to the
I think I could
quality.
speak for you, Kyle, but Kyle, myself, Brad, Kristen, all of the people that are involved in the teacher trainings are so passionate about giving our students the best education, and we just continue to look at it, revise it, add more, and we're so excited. We're so excited to just keep offering more workshops, more trainings. So not only we're not just letting these teachers walk away with a 200 hour, but know that our doors are always open for them to come back and continue their education, which has been pretty exciting.
Well, it's one of the things that I found, just when I did the hot immersion was, being able to come back and then I did, a few weekends with you where we sat down and just went through stuff because I was so just terrified. And it really helped, and I think that means a lot to people, to know that there's, those opportunities are there. So one of the things that I wanted to, how is this going to differ from a traditional vinyasa training, like the 200 hour that just got done? What's the difference going to be?
Sure. Go for it.
It's a little bit shorter. It's still 200 hours, but we're doing it all in 6 weeks. So we'll be adding Friday nights.
Mm-hmm. So why don't we go over the hours of so people understand what it is, the commitment that they'd be making.
So it's Wednesday evenings from, I believe, 6 until 10:30.
So they'll take the 6 o'clock hot, 90-minute hot.
It's a lot of taking classes.
Yeah.
So, so they'll take the 6 o'clock, 90-minute hot.
And then we go from 8 to 10:30.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Friday, they take the 6 p.m. hot.
Mm-hmm. Same thing.
And then they go until 10:30. Saturday, they take the 8 a.m. hot. And they go until 5, I believe. And then Sunday, they take the 9 a.m. hot, and they go until 5.
Okay.
So not only are they just getting that, but their practice is going to just...
Yeah.
And with the transformation that they're going to go through, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally, I think during that is going to be pretty incredible.
That's when I truly believe that you learn how to teach the hot series by taking the hot
Oh,
series.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the more you can get people to take classes during training, the better they'll be at teaching, because until you understand it pretty explicitly in your own body, you
Yeah.
can understand how to express it to other people.
Agreed. Yeah. And that's always what I'm thinking about. And when I'm watching, or when I'm teaching, is I'm always like thinking about how it feels in my body.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I'm like,
Yes.
oh, that's
Yeah.
and I'm like making all the weird moves and stuff. And I'm like, and I watch other teachers and it's a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, and
That is it. That is the key. If you can start to play around with poses in your own body, you take
Mhm.
what you're learning, and that's where your cueing comes from
Mhm.
for all of it. And that's where the magic happens, is really in your own practice. It's
Yeah.
pretty neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also have a lot of great people coming into the lectures. So like Danielle Michael will be doing a pregnancy and modification lectures,
Okay.
2 of them. So this is another way that it varies.
Yeah.
We have more time for lectures because we're not doing sequencing and as much practice teaching.
Mhm.
So Danielle's going to be able to come in a couple times and do the pregnancy and floor modifications and standing modifications for injury prevention.
'Kay.
Gretchen's going to get to do a little bit of a longer lecture about props and modifications.
Yep.
We have 3 anatomy lectures instead of 2.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot more classroom time.
Okay.
And then just the history is very
Yeah.
different. I mean, you're learning the lineage of the hot
Mhm.
versus
Yeah.
where vinyasa stemmed from and how
Sure.
vinyasa came about. And then also poses. Poses are very, very different. I mean, there's a little bit of crossover,
Sure.
but not much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so the hot series is very much about stillness, and vinyasa is very much about movement.
Mhm.
I think I like to think of it that the hot series is you're removing all distractions so that you can try and make your mind be still even despite that. And in vinyasa, you're creating all of these movements so that you can try and make your mind be still despite that. And so it's like both of them are serving this similar purpose. Just
Yeah.
coming at it from very different approaches.
Mhm. Interesting.
Did that make sense? I was also using my hands.
Yeah,
I was
know,
watching
I
them.
like
I was very
I like that.
mesmerized.
Yeah, I was mesmerized by your hands as well. I think that's pretty common. And then it's gonna be like 26 and 2, right? That's all that's being taught,
Yeah.
correct?
We'll do an intermediate class from the Ghosh lineage, and then an advanced teacher's coming in from the Bikram lineage to come in and do an 84 series class.
Oh,
But outside of that, it'll just be the 26 and 2.
okay. And then is there an expectation about classes, like how many classes you need to take during that training?
So we are including the classes that they're taking,
Mhm.
but on
Mhm.
top of that, I think the total amount that they have to take in the 6 weeks is 30, and 2 of them have to be outside.
Awesome.
You can do it.
You can do it.
Oh, I know I can do it. It's just a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
they
if
have
you
to be
look at
hot
the
classes.
Yeah.
No.
It's a 6-week burst,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll probably waver on that. I bet we let them take an Ashtanga class.
5. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
That's 5
yen
a
is
week.
kind of a nice,
Yeah,
a
they
little
could take
nice
they could
break.
take a yen. You could take
Yeah.
a flow class if you
Yeah.
if you need to get some weights, take a fit class.
Yeah.
But mostly hot. Mostly. Hot.
So what? I know, Kyle, you and I have talked about this a little bit, but hot is such a it's like a prescription.
Yeah.
It's like medicine
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that these postures were so I mean they come from a lineage that's yoga therapy, right? So
Mhm.
the Ghosh lineage postures are prescribed to people one at a time. So that's where this all comes out of. So these postures are therapeutic to begin with.
Yeah.
So many of the postures focus on the therapeutic benefits before the stretching, particularly the compression postures.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just designed for complete strength and flexibility, and all of the systems are worked. And it's very therapeutic. So it's like medicine.
Yeah.
I think this morning, this will cause controversy. This morning I said, hot's like medicine and vinyasa's like dancing. I like dancing.
No,
I like
dancing's great.
but
Dancing's
I
great.
need medicine, and I think that's not entirely true, because I think the vinyasa is very therapeutic as well, and is a profound practice. But the hot, there's something about the hot that is especially healing.
Mm-hmm.
I have a little story.
Yeah.
So at the end of November, my youngest daughter, had her birthday party at the trampoline park. You know that place,
Mhm.
Fly High.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
How'd you hurt yourself?
Well, it wasn't me.
Okay.
I knew better, and I was
Okay.
like, I'm not balancing because I've skinned, like I've taken layers of skin off. I've hurt myself pretty bad there.
Adults should not
So-
jump at trampoline parks.
No,
I'm just
not
saying.
at all.
They should. And play dodgeball.
Mm.
And do backflips.
Mm.
So my partner was like, I watched him, and he bounced like 1, 2. He went to do something, and I saw it, and I was like, oof, that is not going to be good on his spine.
Mhm.
And so it's been almost a month, and his spine has been pretty tender. I think there was some compression. He saw our friend who's a massage therapist, and she says, I don't think it's a bulging disc, because we were worried about that. And so he's been laying off of yoga for the last month. He's been really tentative and really nervous, but I'll find him doing stretches. I'm like, just wait. So last night he went to Danielle's class. Texted me this morning, and he says my spine feels 100% better. It's still there.
Sure.
Still a little sensitive.
Sure.
But it feels worlds better. Took it easy, and back bending was a little difficult in the beginning.
Of course. Yeah.
But it's like I agree, and what I love about the practice is, I think Iyengar is the one who said it, that you're as old as your spine. And the spine moves in 6 directions, right? It moves, it rounds, it flexes, it extends, it twists from right to left, and then it moves laterally from side to side. And all of those movements are over and over again, I feel like, in that practice. And I think that keeping your spine young and supple and healthy, that is the practice that does it time and time again.
Love a supple spine.
Right?
Supple
Doesn't
spine.
everybody love a supple spine?
Everybody loves a supple spine. Well, I told Kyle this. So last week I did not do any hot, which is the first time I haven't done hot in, I don't know, a long time. But it just didn't work where I didn't work it into my schedule. So I was just doing flow classes. And after working this weekend and standing on concrete for 2 days straight, by yesterday morning, I was like, like it just did not feel great. And then I went to class yesterday morning. I went to class this morning. Feels much better. It's like you said, it's still there, right? I'm like, ooh, yeah, my SI joint's just a little something or other. But it has, like, I can feel the way that it works my spine is so beneficial to me. I'm not saying it's for everyone, right? I think it is for everyone, but
I would agree.
For me, it makes it does. I think if you get in there and you do the work, but the really interesting thing was yesterday I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do fixed firm. Like that's one of the ones that I'm like,
sure.
Oh yeah, that one. And it's not even my knees. It's like in my back, right? And so yesterday I did it. I was like, ooh, this, and then I was like, okay, and I went into it, did both sets. And then today I went into the second set and my butt actually hit the floor. And I was like, what just happened? Because that doesn't happen every day for me.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, interesting. Like that's what happens when you do that practice and you do it even though you don't want to, necessarily, right?
You have to put it's a mindset. I really think you have to go into it with a specific mindset, because I think and that's with anything that you do. You have to have a positive mindset, but you have to prep.
Well, and we talked about this with Jack, and he talked about the fact that, there is a certain amount of discipline, right, that comes with yoga. Absolutely. And so it's a matter of, and, some people have already heard this, but it's a matter of going even when you don't want to, right? And it's a matter of having a practice, which means to me having somewhat of an idea of when I'm going to go, so I can't talk myself out of it, right? Even if I haven't drank enough water, or maybe I had too many cheeseburgers last night, or maybe I whatever, right? And that's the discipline, right? Of going and doing, okay, I'm going to go do this, and I'm just going to let the yoga do its work. And it does. Like whatever that looks like. Sometimes it looks like me lying on my back, right? In Savasana for, 30 minutes or whatever. But most of the time it's going through the paces of it. And I think that's true with teacher training as well. So for people that are listening that are like, well, I don't really have the time, right? I mean, how many times have you heard that with people when they're like, that's just a lot of time to commit to something. Because trust me, I can think of about a million other ways that I should spend 200 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You would be so much better at talking to this. I actually dropped out of society and spent 9 weeks in teacher training, so it was on site all day,
You're like
every day.
You're like 9 weeks. Yeah,
So-
this is nothing.
But I was fortunate because I had just lost my job and I was in a position where I could do that. And
Yeah.
I think I talked about it on my first episode. My ex stepped up and because she always does, but
Yeah.
had the kids and everything was good.
Yeah.
So it was easy for me. I think if you
Yeah.
have
And how much did that
family
Bikram
responsibility-
training cost?
Well, I think it was okay. I think it was $10.
$10,000.
Right, and that included board
Mm-hmm.
and the training, and then we
Mhm.
got a sandwich for lunch, or sometimes it was like a little soup.
So it wasn't
You should
food.
be getting like a full course, like
Yeah.
3
But the thing is,
meals
it's
a
so weird
day.
when you're doing that much of the hot yoga. It's like
Yeah, you
all I
probably
want to
don't
do was
wanna eat,
pineapple.
Yeah,
That's all pineapple.
I love pineapples.
It was so good. Still, sometimes when I'm in a really hot class, I'm like, oh, pineapple.
It's all over the place right now. It's
Yeah.
cheap.
Yeah,
It's
Mm.
tasty.
it's the best.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Gretchen,
Yeah.
Gretchen had to actually deal with stuff.
This last teacher training, so I have wanted to take an anatomy and like an anatomy
Yeah.
class
Mm-hmm.
for a while. So I decided. Let me think. It started at the end of August, I
Mhm.
believe, and training started September 4th. So I was about a week into classes.
Mm-hmm.
Into class. I'm doing. So I did. Let's see. I took a class. I was in teacher training. I have 2 young daughters that like need me a lot to run them around everywhere, all
Sure.
over town.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the program director, so I'm working on trainings. I'm working on workshops, etc.
Sure.
And I have my little side mala
Mhm.
business.
And how many classes a week do you
And I
teach?
teach 5 classes a week.
It's a piece of cake.
Yeah. So I think that felt like a little like I felt at times overwhelmed.
Of course. Yeah.
But
You made
you
it through.
do it.
Yeah.
You do it. You make it work, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden, when you let it go, you fill that space. You still
Yeah.
we're always filling that space.
Of course.
And I think that Kyle and I have been really we've really stressed the fact that it's an adult learning environment, that you need to take care of yourself if you're
course.
feeling overwhelmed, if you need a day,
Yeah.
if you have to go somewhere or spend time with your children, that we want you to take that time. We'll help you make up the work as long as it's him and I lecturing.
Yeah.
And so it's really boils down to, do you want it or
Yeah.
do you not want it? And
Yep.
if you want it, you'll make
You'll
it
do
work.
it. Yep. You'll figure out the money. You'll figure out the time. You'll
do.
figure out the everything. Yep.
And money at the, like with really with YogaPod, we offer financing through YogaPod, through a bank. So even that is a barrier that we can help you overcome. We
For
offer
sure.
payments. There's just
We've-
so much.
We've worked out the sweetest deal with Solarium. So if you are from out of town
yep.
and you want to come and do it, you can do that. It's not very much, and it's that's like room and it's tuition, right? So it's tuition
Mhm.
and board. I don't remember what it is, but all of that's up on the website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
And
Yeah.
Solarium is awesome. If you
Oh
Yeah, it
my
is.
been in
gosh.
there,
If you're out of town and you're listening, go to their website, because
Yeah.
Chelsea, who owns it, is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
She's an
It's like a
idiot.
jungle in there.
Oh,
it is.
and trees that
Fantastic.
are old. They're very old.
Yeah.
She has I forget. Like, I think there's a gum tree. Is that right? Is there a gum tree in
Oh,
there?
I
I don't know, but
Yes.
it's incredible. And those trees have been planted like many years
Yeah.
ago. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
So we didn't talk really about credentials, but let's talk a little bit about credentials of you two, as well as some of the other. I mean, I think there's hundreds of, there's thousands of hours of training that people have put in, right? I mean, in terms of when you start looking at all the teachers that are going to be there and the people that are lecturing and that sort of thing. And then, thousands upon hours of practicing, obviously. But what can you guys talk a little bit about your credentials for teaching,
You want to go for it?
for teaching
Sure.
teachers?
Sure. My first training was Bikram yoga. So that was, I don't know, if you do it all told, it's like 950 plus hours. So
It's a lot of yoga.
yeah. So there's that. It's not an accredited program through Yoga Alliance. After that, I did some training at Elan Yoga with Libby and Kristen, who are just amazing people.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did some more training with Brad.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually worked my way up to being an ERYT 200 with Yoga Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
So an
What is it?
experienced 200-hour yoga trained teacher.
Okay.
And then I'm a Yoga Alliance continuing education provider.
You got
and
all
then
the letters
and then
after your
yeah,
name.
and then I'm a member of the original Hot Yoga Association, a level 2 teacher there. So that means I've been teaching Bikram yoga for longer than 10 years, and I've taught more than, I think, 3,000 hours or something.
Wow.
Of just
Awesome.
hot classes.
Yeah.
So
That's a lot.
so that's where I'm coming
Okay.
from with this.
Yeah. I feel like seems legit to me.
I think it's really important. You know, when I had a teacher, like someone who did our teacher training this last time around, and he came to me and we were talking about it, and I said, absolutely know your teachers. Make sure that they just didn't get handed a 200-hour
For sure.
and then are thrown into a teacher training, because I know that happens.
Sure.
So it's so important to know your teachers, know their training and where they come from, and if you align with them.
Yeah.
So look and do your homework when you sign up for a training.
Yeah.
I did 200 hours at Elan Yoga with Libby.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I did 300-hour advanced vinyasa training with Gina Caputo. So that put me at my 500-hour.
Okay.
And then after that, a few years later, I did another 300-hour with the
Yoga therapy.
thank you. It's yoga therapy, but I'm trying to think with who it was. It wasn't Phoenix Rising. I can't.
That's what I was going to say.
I'm
but I
drawn.
don't know
No,
if
it's
that'd be
not.
helpful.
No,
It's
it's not.
Phoenix
It's not
Rising.
Phoenix
Oh.
Rising, but they're wonderful too.
It's okay.
So I did 300 hours of yoga therapy, and then I was just gifted so another like 60 hours of continuing education that will be done with Leslie Kaminoff, which is really incredible. Yoga anatomy, which I'm super duper excited about. So I am an E, which is experienced RYT 500 hour plus hour. I also am a continuing education provider.
And you just did an anatomy class through
I did an anatomy class
on your
through
own.
Front Range Community College on my own anatomy
you
and
wanted to-
physiology
'cause you
because I
wanted-
wanted to.
Because you wanted to.
Yeah, because I wanted to torture
You're
myself.
that kind of, you're
yes,
that
I love
kind of.
school. I am a learner, a lifetime learner. I love school.
And you were, in a former life, you were a teacher.
I was a school teacher.
Right?
I taught
Taught little-
kindergarten.
Taught little kids.
Yes, I
Yeah.
did. Yep.
So you got all that knowledge as well
Yeah.
of how to handle
Just
little
hit them with the
grommets.
stick. No, kidding. No, really though. I mean, teaching is my
It's a
life.
huge- yeah,
It really is.
it's a huge
it's
thing,
a
yeah.
part of who I am.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I love it.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Where would people go to learn more about this process, or would you encourage them to call, email, like if they wanted to learn more about the training, if they have some questions, what's a good way to
Sure.
kind of get some of those answered?
So the first thing that you can do is go on to the website
Okay.
and fill out an application. When
Okay.
we get an application and it gets sent to me and Kyle,
Okay.
I will reach out. I oftentimes will sit down. Like I set up a meeting to have someone come in to take a class by me
Sure.
or with Kyle or whoever, and sit down and chat with us. I think I'm an in-person kind of person. I
Okay.
want to sit down. I want to hear your story. I want you to know my story.
Mm-hmm.
And then answer any questions that you may have. And then
But
we'll
if they
just
live
kinda
in
go
like
from
the
there.
British Virgin Islands or something,
If they live in the British
they
Virgin
would-
Islands,
they
they
would
would
need to
still
give you a
fill out
call.
an application, and
Okay.
then I can either touch base over the telephone, or we can
do a FaceTime or something.
or email.
Yeah.
Or, yep.
Okay.
You're going to find Fort Collins in February woefully disappointing.
Compared
You
to the
live-
British Virgin Islands,
Yeah.
it might be exciting for them. You don't know. March is beautiful though.
Mm.
I mean,
Uselessly frigid.
yeah.
February. March is great. March
Yeah.
is it's starting to come up.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Slowly though, there's little snowstorms.
Yes,
that
there are. There's a
surprise.
few.
Yep.
Yeah. Bomb cyclone. Cool. So people can learn about it there. Is there? what is the pricing, and is there any discount for students or for YogaPod members or for any other first responders? I don't know, any of those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have for several discounts.
Do we know them
Yes.
off the top of our head? Okay.
If you walked in off the street and you were not a YogaPod member, the price is $31.50.
Okay. $3,150. Okay.
If you are, so I don't have my calculator on me. I don't know if you have one that you can pull up, but
no.
If you,
percentages, yeah,
right,
we'll
do
figure it out.
percentages. If you are a YogaPod member, right off the bat, you get 15% off,
That's
which
pretty
is
great.
incredible.
Yeah.
I believe it's $16.44 or $26.44 rather.
Mm-hmm.
So if you pay in full, so we're 2 months. We're January 4th. Will be 1 month out. It'll be an extra $100 off if it's paid in full. So you get 15% plus another $100 off.
Wow.
And I believe that's it. We have financing that's available.
Okay.
We also accept payment plans. So in the payment plan, you make it. So if you want to pay twice a month or once a month, the only stipulation is that it has to be paid off by the last day of teacher training.
Makes sense.
Public classes. So you have that whole time. Public classes are included as part of the training.
Okay.
So you just have to have it paid off by then. So whatever that looks like, whatever that plan works for the person who's enrolling.
Unless you go through the bank, because we also have a deal with the bank, and then you can work out.
Yeah, whatever sort of payment plan you need. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and don't Karma Yogis get like?
Yep, and Karma Yogis, which is amazing, 30% off.
Yeah,
that's great. That's a huge opportunity.
It is an incredible. I would jump on it. I would be a Karma Yogi, and I would take
every $900
training I could possibly take.
$930 off.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money off.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So it's wonderful. Totally it is. It absolutely is.
That's great. Well, and just schedule-wise, so Wednesday night they'll be taking the class from you.
Yes.
Friday night they'll be...
Yes, I'm taking over Wednesday.
Yeah, and then Friday they'll be taking class from Kirk.
Yep.
Oh,
another Larson boy.
Right?
That's my brother.
Saturday morning they'll be taking a class from you.
From me.
And then Sunday morning they'll be taking it from you.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's pretty...
and it's very consistent.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
You know. Well, awesome. Any other closing thoughts, ideas? Rah rah rah. Go YogaPod.
I would just say reach out. If you're interested, if it's something that has piqued your interest, both of us are happy to sit down with you and to talk with you and kind of just figure out a plan.
Yeah. And as somebody...
you won't regret it.
Yeah, and if there's anybody out there that's listening that's maybe taken a hot training somewhere else or maybe has taken a vinyasa training and is somewhat interested in maybe teaching hot, you can always reach out to me as well. I teach hot now at YogaPod.
Yay.
And just started not that long ago, but it's been a really fantastic journey for me. And I really, really, it is one of the highlights of my life right now. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
We're so happy that you took
I am too. I am too, for sure. So, go to the YogaPod website. You can find us there. You can always message us on Instagram, Facebook, all those things. If you enjoyed this, please share it, rate and review us. Let us know how we're doing. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.